Sagittarius season, blink and you'll miss it. The sun appears to zip through mutable fire's domain at what appears to be lightning speed. So the sun here is optimistic, vigorous, expansive, it's up-tempo, it's fast-moving. And after that purging and death rebirth cycle that we've been through collectively in Scorpio season, we are definitely ready to just shake it off. So I recommend dancing it out, like just shaking it all out, crying catharsis, laugh like wildly, primal scream, whatever you have to do, just do it with fire in your belly. Growth and expansion of ideas are permeating this Jupiterian season right now. Jupiter, planet of generosity, rules both Pisces and Sagittarius, and Jupiter's symbolic overflow manifests through Sagittarius as like the expansion of the mind via ideas, via philosophy, via travel, via education, adventure, cross-cultural experiences. Sagittarius also happens to be the archetype of the student and the teacher, and just the interchangeable roles that archetype is. They can go through phases of being teacher, then student again, and just that cycle over and over. There is a correlation between Sagittarius and the 9th house in astrology. There are themes and overlaps and scenarios for sure there, and they're not mutually exclusive, but the 9th house is also where we'll find like travel, higher education, philosophy, a certain type of spirituality, and just discovery and adventure, beliefs as well. Sagittarians, I know, really seem to pride themselves on their mindset, or just like their ability to like expand their mind or adopt a mindset seems to come really easily to Sagittarius. Sagittarius has evolved to refine fire. Such a wild spirit is Sagittarius, and such a wild element to try and tame. And it seems like with Sagittarius, they've almost managed to do the impossible, like channel or control, manipulate fire element. The elevation of spirit happens during Sagittarius season. So think of spirit, the symbol of the triangle pointing upwards, elevation upwards. The flame itself, mutable fire, like Sagittarius being just a representation of human life and human existence. I believe this, but I'm sure many other people have thought of this sort of archetype or energy of Sagittarius to be like this uncontrollable fire, and like a forest fire, and like that reminds me of like, where is this all going? The expression of the sun through Sagittarius is really ascension. Last season in Scorpio, we went to the underworld. That's the archetype. It's the depths of the depths, the darkest depths, the lowest lows, and we went there. So now we want to ascend to the light. Heavensward, let's ascend upwards, forwards, wherever. We just want to go. We want to learn to laugh again. And laughter is just the gift of Sagittarius, the gift of Jupiter. Like laughter and Jupiter go together like peas in a pod, and laughter is the gift after grief, right? So the grief of Scorpio season, the shedding, the endings, the transformation, the saying goodbye to parts of ourselves, and now we're just laughing again. We're like, oh well, look, I made it again, rose again, and now I just want to have fun, I want to party, I want to socialize, and I'm like energized again, reborn basically. I hope you guys are feeling this energy. So a lot of the Sagittariuses I know are very entertaining people. They have loud laughs, loud voices, pretty booming personalities, and they're really just fun to be around. They're also some of the only adults I know that have asked me do I want to play a prank on someone, or should we do a prank on this? And I'm like, okay, sure, let's prank someone. That could be fun. All innocent enough, but like I just never heard adults really saying that. But so in 2021 in May, Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces and Sagittarius, moved into Pisces, so one of Jupiter's happy places basically. And so on a collective level, ask yourself this, you guys: what was happening between the 14th of May and the end of July? Maybe take it to the end of July of 2021. What was happening for you? What changed and got a little bit better, more expansive? For me, this came into my house of work, so I got like maybe 2 new jobs and like a lot of other part-time work at the same time. So I was really just busy with like my work essentially, and it was for the best. So see where Jupiter would have entered for 6 weeks this summer. It's giving you a preview into next year, in fact. But anyway, the reason I'm saying this is from that May, I met, of this year, I met 5 Sagittariuses. I met officially 4 new Sagittarians, and then I was reconnected and began seeing 2 Sagittarians I used to work with at one of the new jobs I got, and they became part of my 6th house, like house of routine and work, just in a very literal sense. But why was I being surrounded on a bigger level? It wasn't just about getting jobs, it was about me being reacquainted with the energy of Sagittarius so much more than any other sign this year. And I have a Sagittarian brother. I have a lot of Sagittarian girlfriends. I like the sign Sagittarius a lot, but I have been just wondering why I needed to see what's been going down with the Sagittarius. Optimism, that was it. I'm like, I really needed it. The world can seem like a dark place, and you know what? In my opinion, it likely is. I've been meeting all of these Sagittarians, and I'm like, okay, I needed their optimism. I needed to know that there are other spiritually minded people out there. Like Sagittarius is a really spiritual sign, and like, but the Jupiterian expansion, like I said, is of the mind. So it is a bit more philosophical, and a bit more like they're very into their manifesting, I found a lot of Sagittariuses have read The Secret, that book. I haven't, but I believe that it's because Sagittarius is the sign that is most closely attuned to the laws of the universe anyway, a natural law. That comes extremely natural to Sagittarius. They've been bestowed with Jupiter's wisdom and expansion on that regardless, so that's good. But yeah, I find that Sagittarians can be real skeptics of astrology, in my anecdotal experience more so. I don't really have any astrology to really back that up properly. I haven't really looked into that properly, but anecdotally I have found that Sagittarians, they are not really buying astrology too much, but they're very aware of magic though, manifestation, whether that is mindset or magic, whatever it may be. Like manifestation, you Sagittarians are pretty you don't need to really be sold that, because you've seen it play out in real life. You know, when some people who maybe can see ghosts and all of that thing, they're like, oh, do you believe in ghosts? And they're like, it's not really a matter of believing, like as such, it's reality for you. So you see manifestation play out really easily. So I needed all the sort of optimism. Archetypally, Scorpio would be the dark night of the soul, and now the soul has discovered light once more. So now what do we do after a dark night of a soul? We've purged, we've discovered the light once more. Sometimes you think this day will never come, so you just are like tranquil, you're zen, you have this moment of peace, and that's the really, it's a fleeting feeling at times, like, so we have to kind of make practice in our life to sort of be able to harness that feeling of tranquility and that zen like feeling that comes after, like I guess it's a healing or cathartic feeling, I suppose, afterwards. It can be fleeting, but this peace, this sort of sense of tranquility washes over, and then you're ascending higher energetically towards the light, basically. So you feel yourself getting lighter. Like that's a helpful thing to do in manifestation, like really imagine your body as light, or as light as possible, like physically as as light, as like less dense as possible. And then also it's helpful to imagine like pure light, or white or yellow light, or something like that. This magic manifestation comes extremely easy to Sagittarians. Yeah, just like Jupiter will have brought Sagittarius closer to understanding those sort of laws of the universe more naturally than others born this way. I can't really fully speak to The Secret, for instance, but I know that there's something about maybe law of attraction. Oh, Luna now wants to play. She's got a ball here for me. She's like a puppy that like fetches, plays catch. Sagittarius is very closely attuned to those natural laws of the universe. They can thank Jupiter for bestowing that sort of sense of wisdom and expansion of the mind, open-mindedness. So you're attuned to the inherent laws of the universe, law of attraction, cause and effect, duality. They're blunt, they're frank, they're honest, but they're likable enough to generally get away with this because Jupiter is very jovial in Sagittarius. It's fiery, it's upbeat there. It's really like likable, roguish. There's this gypsy energy, like a free spirit, like a wanderer, a nomad, the traveler, the philosopher, the student teacher, the wise elder archetype, the questioner and the quest, and the bow and the arrow and the quest and the direction. Where are we going? So we blaze through this season pretty quickly. I have found that this sort of season of mutable fire goes by pretty quickly energetically. So what is this all about? The Sag on the arch is carrying an arrow shore and pointing it. They have a direction. It's skyward, it's upward or heavensward, but they're all asking a question. So we've got a burning questions this month in Sagittarius. So it does seem like we just blaze through Sagittarius season really quickly. And Sagittarius is asking us to ask questions. Jupiter has bestowed wisdom, knowledge, good-natured and well-likable personality traits on the Sagittarian soul to kind of arm him for the challenge of asking questions. And that's what I've kind of noticed too. We can ask questions this month. We should celebrate this month. We should laugh. We should play. We should be silly, not to take it all so seriously. That's what I've noticed. This is the great thing about Sagittarius. My one biggest takeaway that I've had from having these people come back in my life. And you know, okay, we'll be sitting down, we get straight to the bones of what the most important thing that needs to be discussed is, or like if they're not afraid to talk about the important things, right? But I have a tendency to carry with it a lot of depth as I'm a water sign Jupiter, and I have no limit then to the expansion of how deep I can go with something, and even emotionally potentially can come into that. So the Sagittarians know when to just cut it. They know when to lighten it up right away, crack a joke, just tell me an interesting story. They're an awesome storytellers, of course, especially if you've got like Jupiter around your Mercury or anything like that. You're just gifted. If you've got Jupiter in the first house, pretty well liked, jovial, just like, yeah, they're just a nice person, or they're great fun to be around, and like just usually very well liked. So wherever Jupiter is in your birth chart, you have just some natural flair there, some Midas touch. Sagittarius taught me how to just not get too deep. You can still touch on what's important and speak the truth and honor the truth without getting too deep. They can move on swiftly from the issue, crack a joke, tell a story would be great. Yeah, and I mean, they know how to bring things up really quickly again, which is what Pisces is great at doing, is getting right to where you are, like maybe before you got there, no problem, and then I'm like, oh well, now you're left here. Sagittarius is a bit more of the teacher, the counselor. Pisces overflow is the empathy and the compassion for suffering in the first place. But Sagittarius has learned from that alchemist in Scorpio season, Scorpio being the alchemist, and Sagittarius the alchemist energy too. I can see that like that too, but learning how to blend and to mix, and it's mutable too, so that's perfect. Knowing what dash of humor, what dash of intellect, what dash of seriousness all goes together really nicely. Thank you, Sagittarius. So I'm going to get into the astrology now for our month ahead, December, via each rising sign. That's going to be time stamped below. I'll have the times that you can skip to for each of the rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, it's really easy to check it out. However, I wanted to touch on the astrology in general for December at the moment. 3 things I think I'm touching on here. Well, we're opening the month with the solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius around the 3rd or 4th of December, depending where you live. And solar eclipse energy is basically a new moon ramped up, and like a supercharged new moon. And new moons are typically an energy of a fresh start, new beginning, getting an email for the first time about a new topic coming up, just something that's new or novel, or seems like an initiation. But with the supercharged eclipse energy here, this is more of a significant new beginning in some area in your life. It won't be something that's brand new. I'll trick you here now, Luna. It will have a tone potentially of something that was 12 months ago from now or 6 months ago from now. It's an eclipse cycle. So see how that falls for you. Around then the 19th of December, see, she's back with her ball. And the 19th, Venus will station retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. So this will be a period of reflection, redefining, reaffirming your values essentially in a certain area of your life. I believe it was last year that the Venus retrograde happened in Gemini. That was me very much redefining my beliefs as it happened in my 9th house. Oh boy, around June, July of 2020. Yeah, and I had a complete overhaul of what I valued, in fact. Yeah, crazy. So so we probably will have some sort of a reimagining, redefining, reaffirming, or like kind of reassessing. So the retrograde is like a lot of RE words that follow that can be applicable. So that's going to be happening, and around March of 2022, Venus will move into Aries at this point. Venus will move into Aquarius at this point. Which will be good, a breath of fresh air, losing some of the heaviness, I guess, around Venus at that time, but also you'll be walking out of that transit with values being changed or realigning or reaffirming in a bigger way. Like it can be strengthening or the opposite. And so then another pretty big, there is a full moon. It's not an eclipse on the 18th of December in Gemini. Maybe some sort of a turning point coming up for you, or some sort of an ending, or you send that final email and you say, okay, thank you, it's great working for you. That's sort of an energy. And then the biggest transit, I guess, that's happening, which will be on the 24th of December, is the Saturn square Uranus. Now, this has been the signature astrological transit of 2021 all over. This has been a building square. These are slower moving planets, and they will make 3 exact squares in 2021. They do continue to square until October of 2022. But in 2021, Saturn squared Uranus on around the 14th of February, the 14th of June, and now on the 24th of December, they will square again. Now, the thing about this is it isn't just a one-day transit that you'll feel and it'll be like, oh, well, nothing happened on the 14th of February February, but it's a kind of building the weeks either side. I do think that the themes that have been playing out most starkly, and I think kind of undeniably to astrologers at this point, is the themes that are being highlighted here is what Saturn represents. Well, first of all, the aspect between them, the square, is one of tension and challenge. We have squares to provide the challenge for us to overcome the obstacle to grow. So they provide great growth, much more growth than trines or sextiles. Even though squares are challenging to deal with on a personal level in our chart, they really are the catalysts for growth and development. So between Saturn and Uranus, there is this square. So let's think of it as like a face-off, pretty close face-to-face. Like, we're not tug-of-war opposites of the constellations here. We're squaring off together. And Saturn represents restriction, boundary, limits. I guess the government, because it represents control. It represents patriarchy, corporations, structures and walls and things like that. And we're seeing a lot of Saturnian influence at play. This would have started off at around 2020 when Saturn and Pluto made their famous conjunction in January 2020. So the Saturnian, we've been watching Saturn since then. What has Saturn been doing? What has Pluto been doing? These are big players for us in the 2020 story. So basically the whole thing now with Saturn being these archetypes that I've listed, squaring Uranus, further out planet, rebellion, revolution, progression, liberation, humanitarianism, science, discovery, radical change, freedom. So we have these squares. It's pretty undeniable how it's manifesting. Heightened restriction, heightened Uranian response, the Saturnian versus the Uranian. It's how it's playing out. My estimation will be heightened Saturnian influence around 24th of December on a collective level versus the pushback of people saying, you know, no more restriction around that. Okay, so we have to see how that plays out. It is a 2022 story that is ultimately unfolding there, with the final Saturn-Uranus square being in October 2022. And that won't be just like the be all and end all, but that's when it's more or less wrapping up and that song has played essentially. And however that manifests along the way is going to depend on a lot of things, astrologically and otherwise. Why don't we get into now though your personal astrology for each month, going off your rising sign. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. Let me know if you like hearing some of the astrology like this. I don't know if it's typically something that you're interested in, or you're just interested in more just of the personal. I have both, so let me know in the comments, and it would be great to hear from you in the comments as well. Have a great holiday period, whatever you're celebrating between November, December and January. I really hope it's a great one for you. Aries rising. Okay, so you begin the month with the Sun and Mercury in your 9th house. So it is a really good time for communicating and writing. You can use the start of the year to write, to publish. It's a great time if you're like creating content, or if you are a writer and editor. I wouldn't recommend doing anything for the first time, like launching your first book or anything like that, just because there is an eclipse on the 3rd or 4th of December, depending where you are in the world. And eclipse energy is a little more chaotic and volatile. I tend not to push things or initiate anything too important around eclipses. And there's this big illumination with that solar eclipse new moon in your Sagittarius 9th house, Aries rising. So like big new ideas coming into focus, plans, education, travel, and new philosophies, like having these ideas or seeing your mind expand and being able to think about bigger picture topics. Mars in Scorpio in the 8th house, squaring Jupiter in your 11th house. So this could be money or spending issues coming up right now around friends or social circles, organizations you're a part of. A sort of focus on shared resources around the 8th of December. There's a full moon in Gemini on the 18th of December. And this is falling in your 3rd house. And this is going to represent some sort of a finalizing something, a turning point or an ending. It looks like it's going to be around some sort of like a communicative issue, communicative matter, terminating maybe a back and forth email correspondence or something like that, finishing a thesis. We'll stop around how you receive or take info, like you might be saying, I'm limiting myself to kind of like 1 hour a day on this social media site. The 19th of December and Venus will be retrograde in your Capricorn 10th house of career. So you can get what you want career-wise once you've basically redefined what you actually want for career. And this is a really good window to do this. So this could have been just a whole year playing out for you of liberating yourself from something financially, basically. But Jupiter in Pisces, that was a short transit of 6 weeks for you, Aries rising, and that was in your 12th house of mental health. So what was improving around the May through July period around spirituality and or mental health or anything like that? If anything was improving or I guess expanding, so that could even mean like, you know, feeling like it was getting more out of control or growing or something. That energy is set to continue in a way in 2022 as Jupiter will be back there. So think back to how you were doing, like how things were in terms of your practice around meditation, spirituality. 2022 for you with Jupiter going through your 12th house, Aries rising, it's going to be a beautiful year of spiritual renewal. Jupiter expands what it moves through, moving way through your house of God, your house of divinity, your house of connection to the divine. House of connection to your soul. So this is going to be a beautiful year of spiritual renewal for you for 2022. So the tarot card that I got for Aries rising was the Hermit card. So I have written about this, that we could be, for Aries rising, valuing alone time by the end of the year, a big month of research, all of that 9th house activity, which would have been the sun, the moon beginning the month there, and then followed by that solar eclipse on the 3rd or 4th, lighting up the 9th house with your moon there, the moon there and the sun there. So it's all this focus on ideas, travel, education, research, and learning. So I thought that was cool when I saw this with the Hermit as well. As well as that, yeah, the publishing thing stood out to me. If you are publishing something, December could be a really good month for that for you, and you might start to really get a sense of that happening around the eclipses on the 3rd or 4th of December. As well as that, what else do I have here now? Yeah, just trying to find some peace or solitude during this typically busier, more sociable period of the year might be useful for you. Taurus rising, the month opens with the Sun and Mercury in your 8th house, shining a light on some hidden knowledge. The solar eclipse then on the 4th or 3rd of December, depending where you are in the world, is also further illuminating your 8th house, this Sagittarius 8th house of yours. So it's presenting a window of communication opening for you around some sort of a shared resource in your life, and maybe how the theme of shared resources is going to play out for you in the month of December. Maybe you start getting into investing or manifesting other assets or managing other people's resources, or like managing people's talents, or even managing other people's assets. Mars is in your 7th house of Scorpio, squaring Jupiter in your 10th house of career on the 8th of December. So watch out for kind of blurting something out in the workspace, or like with a close partner or a business partner. You have more energy with a business partner or romantic partner, like to work quite well together at this time. So on the 18th or 19th of the month, around then, there is a Gemini full moon, and this is going to be happening in your 2nd house. So wrapping up something around money or finances. The purpose of the Venus retrograde that gets going in your 9th house in Capricorn from the 19th of December is to kind of like redefine your values around the area of your beliefs. When the last, I guess, Venus retrograde in Gemini was in the summer of 2020, and that was happening in my 9th house of beliefs in Gemini. And this is where this is happening for you, Taurus rising. Well, let me tell you, after that retrograde, my values had entirely shifted and realigned and evolved. So watch out for that. Come March 2022, you may have entire new values. The 24th of December brings the important square between Saturn and Uranus. You may have noticed this all through the year, peaking around like February, June, and now again at the end of December, where you're like trying to liberate yourself from certain structures in your life. Some of you have spent 2021 making radical changes to your identity with Uranus transiting the 1st house, while being up against Saturn in this square. So you know, when we like rebel even further against a parental or authority figure, the more pushback they give us, the more pushback the rebel gives the authority figure. You've probably been making some of these more radical changes around your identity with Uranus in the 1st house more permanent, or giving them more structure because of Saturn squaring that. And there are certain windows like probably February, June, and December when this has become possible to make this a bit more permanent in your life. On the 29th of December, Jupiter enters your 11th Pisces house. Thinking back to the summer of 2021 in May and July, in what way were your networks expanding, your friendship groups? Did you meet any new friends? Did you make any new valuable alliances, or integrate in a part of a network, society, team, community outreach program? Did your goals get bigger? Did you start to have higher aspirations for yourself? This is kind of going to be continuing in 2022. If there was any abundant themes around those things I've listed, it looks like more growth and potential could be coming around that. So look out for expansion, or even your friend getting you a job or something like that. Just valuable people expanding your goals and your abundance and aspirations. So the World card is the tarot card I got for Taurus rising when I pulled for December. And so this is got me thinking to sort of Saturn in your 11th house being triggered by that square by Uranus this year. You may really be feeling an urge to radically change, Saturn in your 10th house rather, Taurus rising. Urge to radically change your identity or your job, or something about how you present yourself to the world. How you perceive the world may become increasingly more conservative or more progressive this month. It does have a tone of finality. This month seems to be something that will be accomplished by the end of the year. The World card, really big card for your sign, Taurus, Taurus rising. In fact, most of the cards that I pulled were major arcana for this month. Gemini rising, the month ahead begins with your planetary ruler Mercury and the Sun in your 7th house of relationships in the sign of Sagittarius. So you really start the month with the urge to take the lead on something and deal with other people in your life. Around the 3rd and the 4th of December, we do have a solar eclipse new moon, and that is happening again in your 7th house of relationships. So you may feel the energy of a new relationship emerging around this time. You may even just feel like a breath of fresh air been breathed into a pre-existing relationship. Around the 8th of the month, oh hello Luna, around the 8th of December then we have a Mars square Jupiter. This is happening around your house of colleagues, the 6th house, Mars and Scorpio for right now, and then your 9th house, your beliefs. So maybe there'll be like some opposition between colleagues you work with, challenging your beliefs. Maybe dealing with your colleagues will be more irksome around the 8th of December. But overall, Jupiter is giving you optimism, and Jupiter is giving you like the get up and go, and so is Mars, like this oomph to work more and work a little harder. The 18th and 19th of December, there is a full moon in Gemini. So this will be, of course, happening in Gemini rising's 1st house then. So you may reach a turning point around how you've been presenting yourself. Some sort of presentation of self is coming up here. Venus is stationing retrograde in your 8th house of Capricorn on the 19th of December. So this is really, Gemini rising, going to be a time of revisiting what is most important to us on a fundamental level. By March 2022, you should have a clear idea of what actually matters to you. It's the 8th house of death and rebirth that this retrograde is happening. So think about things, you being aware of things that you will actually live and die for. This Saturn-Uranus square that has been happening all of 2021, this has been happening for Gemini rising between the 12th house and the 9th house. So you've got Taurus in the 12th house, and that's where Uranus is, and it's being squared by Saturn in your Aquarius 9th house. Like you are liberating yourself, Uranus, from a dogmatic and very structured worldview or perspectives on the world, which would be Saturn in your 9th house at the moment. So you maybe are trying to break away from some rigid way of thinking about the world. There is a really positive transit happening for your career around the 29th of December. So cast your curious Gemini rising mind back to May and July, May 14th through to around the end of July. What was happening in your career that was expanding, getting bigger and better? Was there anything like that that you can think about? It seems like that's where the story will unfold beginning the end of December, carrying through into a lot of 2022. So that's really exciting. The tarot card I got for you, as well as Aries rising, Gemini rising, and another sign, this Hermit card has been really coming through strong. So you are reviewing your wealth this month, you're researching, looking for property, I'm sensing, looking at future investments. Perhaps you're opening a business or getting married, or around the solar eclipse, even around the 3rd or the 4th of December. Or else the wheels for something big happening in 6 months' time or 12 months' time are begun and beginning around the time of the month, around the 3rd or the 4th of December. So there's a lot of planning going in now. There's been a lot of planning, and that could be what you've been focusing on. Planning, researching, to act when the time is right, Gemini rising. Cancer rising, your month starts with the Sun and Mercury lighting up your 6th house of work and daily life. So your motivation around work and running errands is higher than usual at this time. So you may as well take advantage of that, and especially if you needed to like buy some gifts before the holidays or anything like that, the start of December seems like a really good time to do so. The solar eclipse is also happening in your 6th house around the 3rd and 4th of December, depending on where you live, Cancer rising. So this could be a significant date when like new information around a job or your daily routine changes. Something comes up, a colleague gives you some information about a position that's available, something new in your routine, or just sort of like your daily average week or your average week could start to change or emerge with this eclipse. And it could be like a continuing cycle from 6 months ago, 12 months ago, some themes running similarly, as this is like an eclipse cycle that lasts about 18 months. So on the 8th of the month, we see Jupiter in your 8th house squaring Mars in your 5th house. So around the 8th of December, you have a lot of energy, Mars fueling that energy to create. There is a chance that you overdo it a lot this particular holiday season because you have Jupiter, which is associated with excess, kind of like spurring Mars on to just have a really good time up until around the 14th of December. So from the 8th to the 14th of December, it looks like it could be a really good time for like holiday parties. If you have a shared or vested interest that isn't really working out right now, Mars is squaring Jupiter in your 8th house of shared resources. So it might even represent a time to sever some tie that you don't really want anymore or that just hasn't really been working out. The full moon in Gemini around the 18th and 19th of the month. This is happening in your 11th house of organizations and teams. This is representing like a turning point or closing chapter around something to do with friends, organizations, or teams, some 11th house activity. This could be just like breaking for the holidays, like saying goodbye, I'll see you when we return to school and we're back on the swim team or something like that around the 18th of December. Yes, it could be just a relationship with your innermost thought that starts coming up now in a bigger way when Venus stations retrograde on the 19th then as well of December. So on the 19th of December, Venus will also station retrograde, and that will be happening in your 12th house of spirituality. You are refining your relationship with spirituality. Come March 2022, you may have different values around your mental health practices, around spirituality overall and in general. It's less of a time of action between December and March typically. Venus asks you to reflect and try to embrace solitude for these months. You are enjoying time alone more a little bit than usual anyway, though this month overall. There is a really big overarching theme of 2021, which would have been the Saturn-Uranus squares. The big square of Taurus then finalizing this year. I suppose we've had bigger peaks of this energy February, June, and now again on the 24th of December. So basically this has just been activating this square in your chart. So Taurus in your 11th house, Aquarius is in your 8th house. On the 24th, it's kind of going to be an energy of inviting you to break free of some mental prison. This theme feels bigger, and maybe it has played out for you already, like in February or June, and maybe around this time now. You're pushing back against deep psychological fears, which is where Saturn is in your 8th house. And Saturn is kind of in your 8th house dampening things there. Uranus is provoking change for you to radically confront these beliefs, education, conditioned beliefs, and any like repressed fears or emotions. Uranus is asking that to come forward and be liberated. So you might really find like this urge throughout of 2021 to confront some fears of your own. There is a really positive transit happening in terms of your beliefs and education, and if you were taking anything like to a higher level in terms of education or learning or foreign travel, cross-cultural experiences this month. Jupiter is back in your Pisces 9th house of all of these subjects. So cast your mind back to May 14th through to July 29th of 2021. This was like a time when things were going better in areas around education, perhaps a course, a field of study, something that you were interested in, your belief system overall, your worldview, maybe even travel, adventure, and anything sort of a philosophical nature that's looking really good again. So the tarot card I got for you guys, for you Cancer rising, so you're the third sign that have had this Hermit card, and yes, I have definitely shuffled. So deep reflection is in store for you this month. When I talk about this Venus retrograde that's happening on the 19th of December, Cancer rising in your 12th house, you're going to be wanting to be kind of like this hermit in solitude, and you kind of deepen this practice of solitude that maybe you've already been finding yourself working on. It feels counterintuitive because this is a more sociable, outgoing, party orientated time of the year for many, but it does really seem like there is a desire for you to withdraw inwards, and maybe you will feel some feelings of like isolation or just wanting to be on your own in a bigger way. Leo rising, this is your reading. I'm starting to wonder if my cat, who's right here beside me, Luna, is really a Leo after all. I thought she was a Cancer, but she always comes to me during a Leo or Leo rising reading. Interesting. Well, Leo rising, your month of December begins with a nice bright focus on your 5th house of creative self-expression, joy, hobbies, romance, and dating. The Sun and Mercury are together in your 5th house at the beginning of the month, and that's really lovely. So make the most of these enjoyable themes at the start of the month, expressing yourself, having fun, focusing on passions and hobbies and joys, and maybe how they can come into a career even. There's a hypercharged solar new moon happening on the 3rd or 4th of December, depending where you live. This could be opening the door now to creative projects and passion projects, and because the 5th house is the house of creativity, yes, but also of children. So we create children too. So over the last 18 months, like in the last 6 months or 12 months, or even just now recently, you maybe have even fallen pregnant or had a baby. The 8th of the month brings about a square between Mars in your 4th house and Jupiter in your 7th house. So the potential to have a flare up with somebody you live with is possible. It's possible for this to happen with somebody if they are of a romantic nature too. This is happening around your 7th house of romantic relationships. Also around the 18th of the month, there is a full moon in your 11th house of friends and groups, and kind of this brings about some sort of a turning point here. So maybe you just say, bye guys, I'll see you from the chess team after we break for the holidays, and I'll see you in the new year. On the 19th of December, Venus stations retrograde, and this retrograde will see us through even to 2022. But this is happening for you now in your 6th house of work for you, Leo rising. So this will be you kind of like seeing what kind of work drains you now, like reimagining your work, redefining your values with what you do, how you spend your days, basically. What do you want in terms of a routine and what would be most efficient for you? You reconsider then what work is draining on you, on your physical health even, because the 6th house is the house of health. The overarching theme of 2021 was the desire to liberate ourselves from some restriction via a series of 3 exact squares. So this was happening between your 7th house of relationships, where you have Saturn in Aquarius transiting right now, and then your 10th house of Taurus, career. So maybe over the time periods in 2021, like heightening perhaps in February, heightening in June, and even around now in December, you might have felt at odds between your career and where you were going in your career and vocation and calling even, and intention to your personal romantic relationships. Or maybe you wanted to take your career in a different direction than your business partner wanted to take it. The need to free yourself from limits in your relationship or career could have come up more forcefully around February, around June, and around December potentially again. When Jupiter returns to its happy place in Pisces on the 29th of December, this is coming back into your 8th house, Leo rising. You feel greater intimacy in the pre-existing bonds that you have at the moment, in some of your deepest bonds. You may have been arguing with family a little bit more throughout November. Mars has been transiting your house of family since basically the end of October, so all through November. You may find that starts to alleviate around the 14th of December. As well as that, if you casted your mind back to like May and July of this year, if things were going well in terms of some sort of a partnership or something intimate in your life, that could be setting to continue. So the card I got for your sign, Leo rising, was this super optimistic, the Sun card. Anything blocking your pathway before begins to clear this month, and blessings will be probably obvious to you this month, and inspiration is going to be flowing. You feel in alignment to your most authentic self. It's a really happy card, and I hope that you have a really happy month. Thanks for watching, Leo rising. Virgo rising, your private life is actually at the focus of the beginning of December for you in your chart. So the Sun and Mercury are together in your 4th house of living situation, family, or just basically who you live with, be it family, roommates, romantic partner, husband or wife. There is possibilities for initiating new conversations with these people in your life, especially around the 3rd and 4th of December. There is a solar eclipse new moon happening here, so it's this energy of a new beginning being possible. You may have felt themes coming up around this home and living situation 12 months ago and 6 months ago. It's like the continuation of an eclipse series. So the 8th of December shows up as tension between your siblings or neighbors, or even tension with like the local shopkeeper and yourself. You're running a lot of errands at the moment, very busy now with Mars being in your 3rd house. So Mars in your 3rd house around the 8th of December, Mars in your 3rd house is going to square Jupiter in your 6th house. So that's around the time when this Mars conflict could show up with 3rd house people like siblings, or like that shopkeeper or something like that, someone in your locality. And they have the propensity to blow up because Jupiter is there squaring and making it a little bigger. Siblings' lives may be coming more into focus as well in the month of November and December, like they're doing something, they're moving, they're getting a new job, whatever it is. This can sometimes happen when Mars transits the 3rd house. The 18th of December, there is a full moon in Gemini in your house of career. So this is representing some sort of a turning point around a career situation of yours. So you might have found yourself finishing up something in terms of a career, or in terms of your public image and reputation. This would just like finishing a project and finalizing a term or some sort of a job with something, or like finalizing a contract you had with somebody. But then, yep, the 19th of December is the date that Venus begins her retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. This is happening in your 5th house of play and creative self-expression. So some of you are going to be redefining your values around, well, things like your joy, your passion, what really sparks joy, and what like doesn't fully satisfy. 5th house is also children. You could be redefining values around children, like whether or not to have them. Now you've decided, like, where do they fit in, like just reassessing and redefining. The ongoing overarching transit of all of 2021 for the collective was this Saturn-Uranus square we talked about earlier, but for on a personal level, this would have also spiked in your chart, Virgo rising, in February 2021, June 2021, and again now at the end of December. So on December 24th, this will be this continuation of themes that you in your life personally want to be liberated from. This is the 6th house of Aquarius for you, Virgo rising, which will be work. Your 9th house of beliefs. Oh, hey Looney. You might have noticed this energy a little bit more February, June and December, like, oh, I'm getting so fed up with work, like I'd love to just travel, I'd love to go somewhere. Your daily routine, your day job responsibility, you have grand plans and you may feel restricted by even your physical health or your job or your responsibilities in going after them. So you have these like 9th house grand plans, big ideas, and Uranus is there trying to make you like be more radical in the pursuit of those, and Saturn is restricting you in terms of maybe your health, maybe your routine, or the job that you currently have, and it's saying like, oh, it's hard for you to go after these, and you're kind of trying to combat that at all times during 2021. It can feel like that. Jupiter moving into your 7th house, into Pisces, again on the 29th of December. So think back to May 14th through to July 29th of this year, Virgo rising. Think about your partner's life, business partnership, romantic partnership. Was their life getting better? If so, did this influence your life in a positive way? That theme is set to continue into the 2022 year, the first quarter of 2022. So it does seem like overall romantic long-term relationships or business partnerships are set to have a tone of improving overall. Thinking back to May, June, July, that will shed a little light on this. Are you okay, Luna? Oh, her eyes look a little bit sleepy. You a little sleepy? Okay, so this was the card I got for you guys. We've been on a roll with the Major Arcana card. So the Magician card, Mercury ruled card for a Mercury ruled chart, Virgo rising. Are you aware of your ability to create this month? You're also probably becoming aware of your ability to create this month. You're also aware of your limitations this month, and setbacks, and even aware of possible delays. But the advice with this card is just to channel anyway, just to create anyway. Invoke all the willpower you can this month, and just, yeah, bang on and muster all the power you can to just do, even when the circumstances and outcomes seem unclear. That's the Magician card for December. Thanks for watching, Virgo rising. Libra rising, the month of December opens with a focus on your local area for whatever reason. The Sun and Mercury are joining together at the beginning of the month and giving you clarity around some sort of neighborhood setting. Also, the lives of your siblings could be coming up in a bigger way at the beginning of the month. There's a solar eclipse new moon on the 3rd or 4th of December, depending on where you live, further illuminating this area of your chart, but also wrapping up a series of eclipses that began in 2020. Beginning a new way now around the 3rd and 4th of December about how you take in information, 3rd house. You may have been even toying with this theme since June 2020. Since June 2020, you may even believe that your beliefs have fundamentally changed, Libra rising. That's because this 18-month cycle of eclipses is wrapping up now in December since June 2020. And that was happening between your 3rd house of information and processing and understanding and learning, to your 9th house of beliefs and perspective and overall worldview. So that might have really fundamentally changed how you see the world. The 8th of December brings a focus to creative pursuits and children and joy. There is a chance to even spend way too much around then. We have got Jupiter in your 5th house, expanding all these good things in life and your joy and your hobby, being squared by Mars in your 2nd house of money. So a lot of spending could have been going on recently for you, Libra rising. You may have been spending all the way through November as Mars blazed through your house of money, just taking action around money. So just spending it basically. So around the 8th, when Jupiter, the planet of excess, squares Mars, it's just adding a greater likelihood to spend a little too excessively. The 18th of the month shows a full moon in the sign of Gemini in your 9th house of beliefs and religion and philosophy. You maybe reach a conclusion on something around the 18th. Now you can figure out like what way you finally think about it and get a more definitive kind of answer on something. The 19th of December, Venus begins her retrograde, and this will be in your 4th house of home and family and living situation. So you're going to be re-evaluating, redefining and re-examining, reaffirming what it is that you value around living and home and family life. 24th of December, we are seeing the final Uranus and Saturn square. So this is just representing an overarching theme of 2021, where you maybe have felt like you need to liberate yourself from some area of life that there is restriction. You may have felt this more intensely intensely in February, June, and again at the end of December. This is possibly coming up around your 8th house of joint ventures and shared resources. As well as that, it could be coming up happening around your 5th house of creativity. So maybe some of you do something creative for a living in a shared venture way. It's coming up for strain again. Maybe some of you are 8th houses where we suppress things and keep things hidden, and not necessarily keep things hidden, but perhaps repress things. We're aware of them there, so they're not fully hidden like they would be in the 12th house, but you're aware of them, but they're private, right? So you might be like saying like, to hell with it, I'm going to express something that's usually a bit more private about this year. So the World card in reverse was actually the card I chose for Libra rising when I was shuffling. So it does seem like there is some sort of an unsuccessful attempt at something this month, but you power through nonetheless. You're trying to grapple with some bigger structural changes in your life and in your environment right now. This is the card for Saturn, and we did talk about this Saturn transit. So around the 24th of December, you're really kind of thinking like, whoa, some of you are thinking like, what I do for creation and what I do for play could really set up long-term structures in your life. But wow, this is the, I think, 7th major arcana card I've gotten so far. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Scorpio rising. The month of December opens with Mercury and the Sun in your house of finances, the 2nd house. So that means that you're probably seeing things around money clearly. There probably is more of a focus around financial matters. There is a full moon or new moon solar eclipse there on the 3rd or 4th of December, depending on where you live. Putting more of a focus and illumination on money matters again. Avoid signing a big contract around money at the start of the month if possible, but there does seem to be more of a focus there on how you begin to make more money. This is not something that may be brand new to all. This is part of an eclipse season which has been running over the last 18 months, since June 2020, winter 2021, summer 2021, and finally now in winter 2021. So 12 months ago and 6 months ago, this might have been the start of some sort of a cycle around this same theme. So on the 8th of December, there is a square and some tension coming up between Mars and Jupiter. So Mars in your 1st house, Scorpio rising, Mars is in Scorpio right now, is square Jupiter transiting through Aquarius, I should say. That's in your 4th house, people where you live, people from where you live, your roots, your ancestry, your family home, or if you live with roommates or a significant other now, that would be also 4th house. So you might be hearing things like, because this focus on your 1st house, your identity, Scorpio rising, people might be saying things to you like, oh, you've changed, or I don't recognize you anymore. Something like that could be coming up. This issue of like, are people not taking my identity seriously, especially if it's with family who have known you for a longer period of time. The 18th of December sees a full moon in your Gemini 8th house. So this is wrapping up some sort of an intimate entanglement with somebody. So it could have been like some sort of a communication you're wrapping up. You could have been wrapping up some sort of a financial entanglement that was quite intimate, like a friend owing you money or something, they pay you finally. The 19th of, it could have also be wrapping up some sort of emotional or sexual entanglement. The 19th of December, we see the Venus retrograde beginning, and her retrograde happens in your 3rd house of communication. Between now and next March will be a time of re-examining, redefining, reassessing and reevaluating the way you communicate, how you even take in information, and how you exchange it. Maybe you'll decide to limit your intake of some sort of communication, social media platform, or maybe you'll just start a course and start taking in information through some sort of a new field of study. The 24th of December brings about a square between Uranus and Saturn, and this has kind of been an overarching theme, the year basically of 2021, and there has been this sort of theme of tension between maybe Scorpio rising your house of relationships, 7th house, where you have Uranus and Taurus now. So there is like this desire to liberate around relationships, your career as well. So there's a tension maybe between careers. So potentially your marriage is under strain if you're wanting to take like a different career path or something like that. That could be how that's manifesting. This has been peaking, this energy of strain and desired liberation from the strain, in February, June and December. Jupiter ingresses back into your 5th house, into Pisces, on the 29th of December. This is going to be a really happy couple of months in this transit. You're going to probably closer to a hobby, a passion, a joy. If you got a glimpse into where this was unfolding in your life, in any area around like children, creative self-expression, hobbies, romance, dating, passion and enjoyment, you maybe saw something of the sort in May, June and July of 2021. Scorpio rising, your card that I pulled for you was the 5 of Cups. So it's the first minor arcana card that's come through out of 8 cards. So all signs coming before you, I mean, this was the 8th and first minor, were all major arcana. But you may feel disappointment that something gets in your way this month. You perhaps feel like you've been meeting resistance in how you present yourself to the world. You maybe feel a sense of regret about something to do with self-presentation or how you have been presented in some sort of a sense. There is a big first house focus for you, Scorpio rising, this month, I believe. Okay, thank you for watching and see you soon. Sagittarius rising, the month of December opens with the Sun and Mercury lighting up your 1st house of self, and it's giving you so much clarity around your vision and basically what you're doing and how you see everything. Being lit up yourself. The Sun and Mercury are joined by the Moon, and it is a new moon solar eclipse on the 3rd or 4th of December, depending where you live, further illuminating that house of self. While Sagittarius rising, you may be realizing that you are the product and the Midas touch. You are sure now about how you want to be seen. This solar eclipse on the 3rd or 4th of December is actually part of an 18-month eclipse period. This started in June of 2020, highlighted again in winter time of 2020, summer of 2021, and again this winter time of 2021. So you may be noticing themes around the 3rd or 4th of December of this year that resonates from those times before in the past. It's like the unfoldment of this 18-month cycle, about how you're identifying and presenting yourself to the world, and also you may have had some significant relationships end for you between now and last June 2020. The 8th of the month, we have Mars in your Scorpio 12th house, squaring Jupiter in your 3rd house, which is Aquarius, and that could lead to some inner conflict. Jupiter expanding Mars being in the 12th house of mental health can be sometimes aggravating, and when Jupiter, who can blow things up, kind of squares Mars in the 12th house, it can get your mind going, and it can kind of start having you thinking about some limiting self-beliefs around the 8th of December. Just something to watch out for. It isn't a long transit or anything, just a few days. You really do have a lot more energy at this time to tackle any projects around the 8th of December that involve solitude. Writing or podcasting, for example. The 18th of the month, there is a full moon in Gemini, and this is happening in your 7th house of relationships. So that could be some sort of a climax or culmination point around a business partnership or a romantic partnership. Maybe your business partner and you sign a lease or something like that. You and your fiance get married, or you and your roommate part ways. The Venus retrograde in your 2nd house of money and assets sees you getting choosy about your possessions. What do you really want and need? Come March 2022, you might have a total new outlook on what you really like. You're redefining what you care to spend your resources on and money and energy on. The 24th of the month, December, is a time where any tensions that have been building up for you over the past year around your 3rd house of neighborhood and your 6th house of daily routine and whatnot. If there's been anything like that's been building up over the year, peaking in like February, June, and now again in December, it's likely to feel like tension that you want to liberate yourself in some way from. The card that I got for you, Sagittarius, Sagittarius rising was the High Priestess, another major arcana. They have majorly been major arcanas in this reading. But you are very close to being spot on this month. Your intuition is speaking to you, in fact, loud and clearly. Your subconscious mind has really been activated since probably the end of October for Sagittarius rising, with Mars transiting through the 12th house. Be careful though not to become too standoffish or suspicious of everybody this month, Sagittarius rising, but it seems like you're spot on and really close to being bang on the money. Okay, let's have a catch up soon, and thanks for watching, Sagittarius rising. Capricorn rising. So the beginning of December starts with time possibly spent in meditation, prayer, some quiet time alone. The Sun and Mercury are in your 12th house of connection to the divine. This is a really powerful time for some like psychic downloads to come through, to really let your meditations take you to a higher level of consciousness. At the new moon solar eclipse portal on the 3rd and 4th of December, Capricorn rising, this is happening in your 12th house of higher consciousness and essentially connection to the divine. At this time, you can open a pathway to higher levels of intuition. So all you have to do is meditate and ask for this knowledge, secrets, illuminations. On the 8th of December, Mars in your 11th house, which is Scorpio in your chart, is squaring Jupiter in your 2nd house of money matters in the sign for Aquarius there. So this square between Mars and Jupiter here, this could be coming up as like people in your social circle, 11th house, being like energetically draining on you, resource-wise, or maybe like people who sponge money from you. Maybe you're identifying that around the 8th of the month, or it becomes kind of obvious. There could be a flare up with a friend or like a friendship group you're a part of. You do have the opportunity to cut ties and energetic cords with people that block your income, but also on the Gemini full moon in your 6th house, that's on the 18th of December. This is a turning point around work and your daily routine. You could notice a colleague handing in their notice, for example, or it could be you even handing in your notice or something like that. Maybe you were potentially having problems with friendship groups or social circles in November with that Mars transit through your 11th house, but now things look to be smoothing out. It's not the best month to make radical changes to your look, physical appearance. Before the Venus retrograde is fine. The Venus will retrograde in Capricorn, your 1st house, beginning on the 19th of December. So not a good time to experiment with your look in a radical way. You kind of have got to focus on redefining your physical self and the way you like present yourself to the world, regardless, with this retrograde through the 1st house for you. Around the 24th of December, it's a crescendo of a year-long building tension between structures and the freedom in your life. It's the Saturn-Uranus square. It's been happening between your Aquarius 2nd house of money and your Taurus 5th house of creative self-expression and joy and children. So you may have felt like you're really struggling like to fund the lives of your children. You're really struggling to fund your life as an artist, potentially, is coming up. You're trying to build long-term sustainable income sources, but through your art or through what you do for fun or for joy or your creation, I suppose, or something just that like you own, like a business or something that's like your baby essentially, and that's coming up, that it's like wanting to liberate you some way. This is kind of maybe an ongoing overarching theme that you're noticing. Yeah, you do seem to be trying to build something long-term and sustainable, enduring money-wise, but there's a desire to break free from the restraints of money and follow what you truly want, which might be something more 5th house related. That might even be shocking to some to follow what your heart truly desires, Capricorn rising. Tarot for your sign, Capricorn rising, was the 2 of Wands in reverse. So you may hold yourself back from something this month. Maybe it's because you've realized something that when you were spending this time alone in meditation or in quiet time, you realized that it wasn't for you. Maybe though, for some, you're just ending a job this month and finding a new position. Thanks for watching, Capricorn rising. Have a great December and end to your year, and I'll see you soon. Aquarius rising. December starts with a focus on your social circle, your friends. You are getting inspired by your community as a whole. All of this activity in your Sagittarius 11th house to start the month. You have new aspirations and goals, and this is really coming into focus around the 3rd and 4th of December. Depending where you live, there is a solar eclipse new moon in Sagittarius. For you, this is your 11th house of aspirations and goals. So there's something, a goal or a dream or a wish you just really can't get your mind off at this point. It might be the continuation of a theme or part of the eclipse cycle that began in June of 2020, peaking again in winter of 2020 and then summer of 2021, and now again this winter of 2021. So thinking back over this 18-month cycle from June 2020, some been like creation or collaborative process, and maybe it's some sort of a continuation of that, or something like a theme around that was enhanced during that eclipse season. The 8th of the month, Mars in your Scorpio 10th house is squaring Jupiter in your Aquarius 1st house, and this is a time where your career and self-expression can really reach spur each other on and reach new levels. There's a focus on expanding the self, Jupiter in Aquarius in your 1st house, and putting yourself out there to a bigger audience right now, which would be to squaring Mars in the 10th house of career. There is an enlarged motivation, Jupiter in the 1st house, around career and public reputation, Mars in the 10th house at the moment. So that's good. That's something that you can take advantage of. On the 18th of December, we've got a full moon in Gemini, which is happening in your 5th house of creative self-expression. So you might find yourself like wrapping up a pottery class at this point, finishing a work of art or a passion project you've been working on. On the 19th of December, Venus stations retrograde, and this is happening in your 12th house of solitude and alone time. So you probably will feel a more value placed on having time alone every day, having quiet time for yourself more than usual, just kind of like really valuing your own company more than usual. You're also during a Venus retrograde redefining your values around that house. So I guess like you're redefining your values around spirituality and the theme of forgiveness in your life, and transcendence in the 12th house. The strife you've been experiencing in the month of November around your career, as Mars has been transiting the house of career, and just your reputation has just been causing you some stress potentially. That should be set to alleviate when Mars leaves the 10th house and moves into your 11th house, leaves Scorpio and heads to Sagittarius around the 14th of December. You want to define yourself, and your roots and your private life wants to change, and want maybe liberation, as you have Taurus there with Uranus wanting some change in your home and living situation. You might want to start changing your living situation. This theme may have come up for you during these Saturn-Uranus squares from February and June and December, and there's something about your identity that's caught up in this. Saturn, you've built an identity in the 1st house, but something about where you live wants to be liberated with this Uranus transit through the 4th house. When Jupiter moves back into your 2nd house in December, money matters are set to improve or expand or become easier or more generous even, and free-flowing for Aquarius rising. Jupiter in the 2nd house, it can definitely be a spendy transit, so watch out for that in December, beginning the end of December. So this is more of a 2022, so I won't go too much further. The tarot card I got for you guys was the Hanged One. It was actually in reverse, so the penny hasn't fully dropped for you in December, but there is new perspective just itching to break through. So this could be happening around the 3rd or 4th, that solar eclipse new moon. Totally like just ask for it. Just be like, okay, I'm ready to hear it, and then just listen out to what you hear. Just wait until the message comes through. Have a great month, Aquarius rising, and see you soon. Pisces rising, the month of December opens with your 10th house of career and reputation under focus. Mercury and the Sun are there together, giving you quite a lot of clarity about what it is you actually want in terms of your career. So any new chapters that are unfolding at the moment with the new moon solar eclipse portal happening around the 3rd or 4th of December, depending on where you live, is also in Sagittarius, also in your 10th house of career. So it's possible for some new beginnings, new chapters to start unfolding. This is an eclipse series of 18-month cycle at this point. So what you're experiencing now may have like a lingering tone of something that resonates or seems similar to something that was happening in the summer of June 2021, also in the winter of 2020, and in the summer of 2020. So this is the culmination now of an 18-month cycle around something to do with your career. On the 8th of the month, Mars in your Scorpio 9th house is going to be square Jupiter in your Aquarius 12th house. So 9th house topics like religion, philosophy, politics, there would be more of a likelihood then for arguments with Mars there around these topics. And with your 12th house, Jupiter there, it might like really kind of like put tension around like your mental health then or something, or like really drain you very much energetically at this time. That same time, however, Jupiter is squaring Mars and giving it this even extra focus around learning about certain topics, or like being able to take in a lot of information around the 8th of the month. Having Jupiter in your 12th house of connection to the divine really just has been helping Pisces rising to kind of reconnect to spirituality, have some sort of a spiritual revival, almost expand their spirituality in 2021. And that's ongoing until the end of the year, until December 29th. On the 18th of December, there is a full moon in the sign of Gemini, which is in your 4th house of home and living situation. This might just feel like some sort of family drama reaching a turning point, something that a family member or somebody you've been living with has been dealing with reaches some sort of a turning point or culmination phase. Venus will be stationing retrograde on the 19th of December in your 11th house, signaling a period of reassessing and redefining your goals, also the community you're a part of, also the people you spend your time with, and the collective you're a part of. Any tension that may have been building in 2021, peak times being February, June, and now again at the end of December, kind of anything to do with your mental health. So this might be brought to a bit of a crescendo again at the end of December, around the 24th for you, Pisces rising. You may have been trying to take your mental health, make it more maybe stable at this point, and then information you were processing or the people you were dealing with or communicating were probably quite triggering to you at these times in February, June, and maybe again at the end of December, maybe even unpredictable in nature. Uranus is transiting your 3rd house right now, Pisces rising. The 29th of the month brings Pisces rising, a really nice transit of Jupiter returning to its happiest place at home in Pisces. So think back to May through July. You were establishing or expanding some sense of self in May through July with Venus or Pisces, Jupiter through the Pisces 1st house, Pisces rising. Okay, so at this point you're expanding your sense of self. This is going to be the theme that's continuing for Pisces rising. Very much like main character vibes here for you. The card that I have is the 7 of Pentacles. So Pisces rising, you do seem a little frustrated with your personal growth, maybe your financial growth, whatever it is, the way growth is happening for you at the moment, it seems to be in spurts, whether it is career or personal, professional, you're a little frustrated with the way it's happening. Keep plugging away would be the message of the 7 of Pentacles. Thank you so much for watching.